For recipe notifications, do not forget to subscribe to Get Curried and click on the bell icon. While we're traveling abroad or away from India, one thing that we generically miss about Indian cuisine are its halwas, mithais or sweets. What I miss the most are the Bengali sweets. While we think they are extremely complicated, today let me simplify one of my favorite Bengali sweets, and that is a Rasmalai. And what I'm doing is making it with just 5 ingredients. Hey guys, it's Varun Inamdar and welcome to Get Curried. Well, you'll be thinking in one place I say it's a complicated recipe, but I'm using 5 ingredients. On another side, you see this whole array of ingredients here, which is kind of confusing. But trust me, what is important and critical are just 5 ingredients. Beginning with milk, sugar, vinegar, nuts, and saffron or saffron extract, which actually imparts a lot of flavor to the Rasmalai. What I'm doing is heating milk in 2 separate pans. This is 1 liter of milk and I'm going to make Chenna or chana out of this. In this one, I'm going to make the syrup or the ras for the Rasmalai. While we are using milk in both the cases, it's absolutely important to heat the milk initially, or boil it rather, and cool it down completely, skim off the cream, because what is required for this recipe are the milk solids and not the milk fat or the cream. Stir this constantly. You do not need to reduce it or anything. The moment you start seeing that the steam starts jutting out of the milk, off goes the flame. And the next ingredient that goes in is vinegar or lemon juice, because with the use of the acid, we are going to split or curdle the milk. But what is important here is to dilute the vinegar with equal quantity of cold water. It is absolutely an important and a mandatory step to do this, because if you do not do this, the Rasmalai tends to be rubbery or leathery rather than soft and spongy. We need to stir the milk and simultaneously also add in the vinegar, which has been diluted with water. Leave this aside for now. Do not use the same spatula in the other milk, because this one is not to be split. What we need to do is start flavoring this with, of course, sugar and saffron. So the first thing that goes into this is sugar. Stir this well. The main flavor for the Rasmalai is actually an extract of saffron and cardamom. What I have with me is, of course, saffron and cardamom individually, but what I also have with me is saffron color, saffron essence, which is combined together. You get this in a lot of countries. What you also get is, of course, the saffron strands and the cardamom. But what I have here with me is a mix of saffron and cardamom. Well, I've been lucky to lay my hands on something like this. If you do not have this, what you need to do is dilute saffron in some warm milk, add in some cardamom and use that. This is a syrup which is cardamom and saffron together. So let's add in a little of this. This is extremely strong, and I think just a few drops are enough to flavor this milk. Let's give this a quick stir and turn the flame off. Your milk for Rasmalai is done and ready. Do not forget the milk that has already curdled here. Time to wash this now. First we need to drain this, wash this well, so that the vinegar or the acid flavor kind of drains off completely. So let's take a bowl and a sieve. Let's transfer all of this into the sieve. Do not keep this in hot water for a long time. Remove all the excess water or moisture from the Chenna. And to help that and to wash it up nicely, we need to use some cold water. This is a very important step because it's important to drain out all the flavor and taste of vinegar. Once all the moisture or water from the Chenna has drained off, the next step is to start kneading this into a nice and smooth paste. What I'm doing in this case is I'm using a jar which we generally use for making chutneys. Because what I have figured out over the years of making Rasmalai at home, that this possibly is one of the quickest tricks. Let's grind this. With this, our Chenna has become nice and smooth. What you could alternately also do is add in a teaspoon of arrowroot or corn flour. But trust me, if you're kneading the Chenna absolutely well, it's not required. Let's transfer the Chenna, which is nice and creamy now, onto the plate. The next step is to poach these Chenna into little dumplings into a syrup. Now the syrup is made using 2 cups of sugar and 6 cups, which is 3 times water. So this makes it 6 cups. We need to allow the sugar in this syrup, or this water rather, to start melting completely. And once that happens, we convert these into little dumplings, cut them and poach them into this. How? We'll just see. While the syrup is in the making, let's start converting the Chenna into little marble-sized balls and patting them into a shape that's very synonymous with a Rasmalai. It's important to remember that the Chenna, while poaching in sugar syrup, kind of doubles in size. So while you're planning rasgullas or rasmalais, plan accordingly, because this now looks smaller, but once it begins poaching and once it's done, it'll double up in size. Here, if you notice simultaneously, the sugar has dissolved completely and the syrup is just kind of beginning to boil. Once this completely starts boiling, the next that goes in is the Chenna. Let's drop these in the syrup. You need to be extremely careful and gentle while picking up the balls of Chenna because you may just end up disfiguring them. This needs to now poach on high flame for 15 minutes. Do not tend to stir it or shake it, just let it boil on its own. It's been 15 minutes and the Chenna is perfectly poaching in this. Time to turn the flame off. And the next step is equally important as the steps before this. What we need to do is instantly start cooling or chilling the Chenna dumplings. For that, I've taken some ice in a bowl and I'm transferring rasmalai as well as the liquid into this. We need to cool this down completely so that the Chenna dumpling becomes nice and cold and will retain the spongy texture. In the interim, let's start chopping or slicing the nuts. I've taken a mixture of pistachios and almonds in this case. With this, all our components of rasmalai are done and ready. Now is the assembly. For these, of course, we need the Chenna dumplings to go in a tray. Try to avoid as much as syrup or ice cubes, if any. We need to top this up with saffron flavored milk that we made earlier. And finally, top this up with slivered almonds and pistachios. With this, your rasmalai is done and ready. Keep this in the fridge for somewhere around 3 to 4 hours so that the rasmalai or the Chenna gets nicely absorbed with the flavor of course, the sugar, the saffron and the cardamom. And trust me when I say, when you start making this in your own home kitchens, you'll stop buying from outside. And did we even realize, though this recipe looks complicated at face value, this one is made using just 5 ingredients. So this one is rasmalai for all of you across the globe. Do not forget to like and share the video and subscribe to Get Curried.